The gods knew it was coming, not as a distant prophecy, not as a possibility, but as certainty. They knew the moment would arrive when the sky would split open, when monsters would walk the earth, and when even they, the most powerful beings in existence, would fall. And still, they did nothing to stop it. Why would beings with immense power accept their own destruction? This is Ragnarok, the end of the world in Germanic mythology. But more than that, it is a story about inevitability, about fate, and about what it means to stand and fight, even when you know you will lose. And once you understand the story, you begin to realize this was never just about the gods. Every ending has a beginning, and Ragnarok begins with something deceptively small. Not a war, not a catastrophe, but a single death. Baldur. Baldur is not just another god. He represents something rare in Germanic mythology. Purity, light, and perfection. He is beloved by all, trusted, untouched by corruption. And that is exactly why his death is so important. Because in a world already filled with violence and chaos, Baldur is the last illusion that something can remain untouched. When he begins to dream of his own death, the gods grow afraid. So they try to control fate. They demand that everything in existence swear not to harm him. Fire, water, stone, metal, animals, and disease. Everything agrees. Everything. Except one thing. A small, seemingly insignificant plant. Mistletoe. Too harmless to matter. Too small to notice. And that is where Loki acts. Through deception, manipulation, and precision, Loki turns that tiny weakness into a fatal weapon. Baldur is killed. And in that moment, something fundamental breaks. Because this is not just the death of a god, it is the death of certainty. The realization that no system is perfect, no protection is absolute, and no fate can be avoided. After Baldur's death, the world does not end immediately. Instead, it begins to rot. And that is what makes this part so unsettling. Because this is not chaos exploding into existence. It is order, quietly failing. Trust disappears. Families turn against each other. Brother fights brother. Not because they want to, but because the structure holding everything together is gone. And then comes the Fimbulwinter. 3 endless winters. No summer in between. No growth, no relief. Imagine a world where the sun no longer brings warmth, where crops fail, where survival itself becomes uncertain. This is not just environmental collapse, it is psychological collapse. Humans are pushed to their limits and beyond, and when survival becomes the only goal, morality fails. This is the true beginning of Ragnarok. Not fire, not monsters, but the breakdown of meaning. For a time, the gods held chaos under control, not by eliminating it, but by containing it. Fenrir, the great wolf, was bound. Loki was imprisoned. Jormungandr was cast into the sea. But these were not solutions, they were delays. And now, those delays come to an end. Fenrir breaks free. And this is not just a physical event, it is symbolic. Because Fenrir represents something uncontrollable. Fear, destruction, the inevitable. The gods try to suppress it, but suppression is not the same as resolution. Loki too escapes his punishment. The trickster returns, not as a chaotic ally, but as an enemy. And then Jormungandr rises. The serpent that encircles the world emerges from the ocean, poisoning the sky itself. At this point, there is no restoring order. because the forces that destroy the world were always part of it. As the world falls apart, something else begins. Preparation. Not for peace, but for war. The gods gather in Asgard. They call upon the fallen warriors, those who died in battle, to join them. But here's the disturbing part. They are not gathering an army to win. They are gathering an army to face the inevitable. The battlefield is Vigrid, a place where everything converges. The sky cracks. The rainbow bridge, once a connection between worlds, collapses under the weight of what is coming. From every direction, forces arrive. Giants, monsters, the dead. This is not an invasion, it is convergence. Everything that exists, moving toward the same final moment. And then, it begins. The final battle of Ragnarok. Wodan faces Fenrir, the god who sought knowledge, against the beast that represents inevitability. And he loses. Fenrir devours him. Donar fights Jormungandr. He succeeds. He kills the serpent. But victory is meaningless, because he only walks 9 steps before collapsing from its poison. Tyr, the god of sacrifice, fights Garm, and they kill each other. Loki and Heimdall, Chaos and Order destroy one another. Every battle ends the same way. Mutual destruction. This is not a war that can be won. It is a process that must unfold. And yet, the gods fight. Not because they believe they can survive, but because it defines who they are. After the battle, nothing remains. The world burns. Fire spreads across everything, consuming land, sky, and sea. The earth sinks. The structure of reality itself collapses. This is not just death, it is erasure. The complete removal of everything that existed before. And for a moment, there is nothing. And then, silence gives way to something unexpected. The world rises again. From the sea, a new earth emerges. Green, untouched, renewed. Some gods survive, others return, and 2 humans remain, to begin again. This is not a restoration of the old world. It is something entirely new. Ragnarok was not just destruction, it was transformation. So what does this story actually tell us? It tells us that some endings cannot be avoided, that control is limited, that even the most powerful beings are not exempt from fate. But it also tells us something else, that meaning is not found in survival. It is found in action, in facing the inevitable, without turning away. At this point, the question becomes unavoidable. Why didn't the gods stop it? They had power, they had knowledge, they saw the future clearly, and yet they never truly tried to prevent Ragnarok. They delayed it, they prepared for it, but they never broke the cycle. Why? Because in Germanic mythology, fate is not something you defeat. It is something you fulfill. Wodan's entire existence revolves around understanding fate, but never escaping it. This creates a deeply unsettling idea. The gods are not rulers of reality. They are bound by it. Ragnarok is not a failure of the gods. It is the completion of their role. Loki is not just a villain in Ragnarok. He is something far more complex. He is both creator and destroyer. Without Loki, many of the gods' greatest treasures would not exist. But without Loki, Ragnarok would not happen either. He represents chaos within the system, not outside of it. And that is what makes him dangerous. Because you cannot remove something that is part of the structure itself. Loki's betrayal is not random. It is the inevitable result of a system that contains its own contradictions. In this sense, Loki is not just the cause of Ragnarok. He is proof that it was always going to happen. At the very end of Ragnarok, one figure ensures that nothing survives. Surtur, the fire giant. While the gods and monsters destroy each other, Surtur burns the world itself. This is important, because it shows that even after the battle, destruction is not complete. It must be finished. Fire becomes the final force, not just of destruction, but of cleansing. Everything that existed before must be erased, so something new can emerge. This transforms Ragnarok into something more than war. It becomes a reset of existence itself. After everything is gone, a new world appears. But this world is different. It is quieter, cleaner, untouched by the chaos that came before. Some gods return, but not all. Which raises an important question. Is this truly renewal, or simply the beginning of the same cycle again? Germanic mythology never gives a clear answer, and that ambiguity is important, because it suggests that Ragnarok is not a one-time event. It may be part of an endless pattern: creation, destruction, and rebirth, over and over again. Ragnarok is not just the end of the world, it is a reflection of a deeper truth. But everything eventually ends. The gods understood this, and instead of running, instead of denying it, they faced it. And if you want to understand what this says about us, about fear, fate, and the darker side of human nature, then you need to watch my video, The Dark Psychology Behind Germanic Mythology, next. Because Ragnarok is not just a story, it is a mirror. The end was never the tragedy. Refusing to face it would have been.